What's going on, Meat Mafia? Welcome back to another episode of the Meat Mafia podcast. Before we get rolling here today, we want to give a quick shout out to you, the listener. We are so thankful to have you on board with the Meat Mafia, and we cannot thank you enough for your endless support. Without you guys, we are nothing. So thank you so much for your comments, feedback, likes, subscribes, listens, everything. It means the world to us. With that being said, please go to your podcast medium's platform, give us a 5-star review. If it's not 5 stars, maybe don't give us a review. Subscribe, do the whole thing. We really appreciate that. And also, please go check out some of the links below. We have some great sponsors, and they are killing it in the world of food and providing great high-quality food for people just like yourself. Quickly outlining our sponsors, we have Holy Cow Beef, Wrich Ranches, Equip Foods, and the Carnivore Bar. These are all great products. If you want to learn more, go check out the links below. Without further ado, here's a word from our sponsors. Holy Cow Beef is a regenerative farm based out of Lubbock, Texas, with humanely raised grass-fed, grass-finished beef available for sale and shipment. Companies like ButcherBox source from outside of the US and Australia and don't specifically have the American Grass-Fed Association, or AGA, label, but Holy Cow does. They also sell chicken and pork in addition to their amazingly high-quality beef raised right here in Texas. Alden and Ann Warren have overcome their own health struggles, and they have inspired us by the way they live their lives and by the way they raise their animals. So go check them out in the link below, and they also accept Bitcoin, so all you Bitcoiners out there, go check out Holy Cow Beef. Also, if you're in Colorado, go check out Wrich Ranches, a grass-fed, grass-finished regenerative farm servicing all over Colorado. He also accepts Bitcoin, so all you Bitcoiners out there, go hit up Wrich Ranches and get your beef today. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by the Carnivore Bar. The Carnivore Bar is an animal-based, shelf-stable product with only 3 simple ingredients: beef, tallow, and salt. The bar is inspired by the ancient traditions of Native Americans who needed to create pemmican bars to preserve meat for long-distance travel. The Carnivore Bar is perfect for animal-based athletes or busy people looking to follow a low-carb diet. It's easy to throw in a bag and take with you anywhere you're going, whether it's a workout, hike, or even packing it for a snack at work. I throw them in my triathlon bag and take down a bar immediately after working out. They're a fantastic product, so go check them out and use our discount code in the link below. All right, we are live here with another episode of the Meat Mafia podcast, joined today by Ariel Acevedo. Welcome to the Meat Mafia podcast, Ariel. We're so excited to have you.
Thank you. I am so happy to be here. You guys have so much information online that have helped so many people, and it really is a pleasure. So thank you for having me.
We could say the same about you. I think the first question we have is, how did you get the name of Twitter's favorite childbirth educator? Because that's a great title.
That's a bold statement, isn't it?
Yeah.
Honestly, it's just self-pronounced. I have flooded DMs all the time of women who want to like free birth or are looking for midwives, or they need maternity help, maternity care. And I have been an advocate for so many women now, and I have done it all for free or at low cost. So to me, it's like, I feel like that's just part of who I am. Like, I am a childbirth educator, and I want to help others achieve what they can out of their, birthing experience. So
Yeah.
It's a bold statement, but I feel like I've earned it at this point. So
We can both say that it's definitely earned from, I think I've been following your account for a few months and have definitely learned a ton about just like holistic health in regards to just females and fertility and everything like that. And I think our audience is going to gain a ton of value from this episode. But I think typically how we like to start, Ariel, is we'd love to learn a little bit about you and your background. I know you've had some health issues that you've overcome. I know you're in the process of having your second child, which has taught you a ton about fertility. I think we'd love to just start there and just see where the conversation flows.
Awesome. I'd love to tell you about myself. So I got into this field when I was 19, when I had just got pregnant with my daughter, my first, and I was extremely ill during the pregnancy. On Thanksgiving Day, I remember I was in a hospital room because I was having another bronchial infection. I always get lung flare-ups. I grew up with asthma. I would get sick 3 or 4 times a year, every 3 to 4 months on schedule. I would get bronchitis or strep throat, something of the nature. And I had been doing that for about 10 years, every year, just, be on time with every season. And I was sitting there in the hospital bed, like attached to a breathing machine. And I'm like, there's got to be a way out of this. Like, this is not normal. And at that point, I'm 6 months pregnant and I'm fed up and I'm tired and I can't breathe. And I started, just doing my own research. And it's like, why do I keep getting sick? Like, how do I stop myself from getting sick? And it all starts with research, right? I've watched a lot of your podcasts, or not watched, I've heard a lot of your podcasts, and a lot of our stories are the same when it comes to being healthcare educators. It comes from us learning, like, we are the problem and we fix ourselves, and then we want to share that with the world, right? Okay. So that's what happened with me. I started eating healthier and doing better by my body, and realized I should probably go to school for this, because I am no longer getting sick 3 or 4 times a year. I had my baby, she was healthy, and I didn't get sick for another 4 years because my immune system was just so on par. And I realized I really need credentials in this field. So I went to university. I got a science degree in complementary and alternative medicine. And then towards the end of my degree, I was trying for my second child. And for some reason, it was extremely hard to get pregnant. And then in like October of 2020, I did get pregnant and I lost the baby in December. And I was like, this is strange because I'm so healthy and I am like eliminating toxins, like I'm doing everything right by my body. And then I discovered there's this whole field of fertility work that is untouched and unscathed. And I started dipping into that and working with adaptogenic herbs and, acupuncture, stuff like that, to get my body aligned and make it healthy and viable for life. And then by April, I got pregnant again, and now I have a 6-month-old son. So, it's like living proof, if you do the research and you really apply yourself, you can have that like healthy family that you want, Mm-hmm. But it all started with me being routinely sick for 10 years on end after, I'm pretty sure I'm not going to pin it on the Gardasil vaccine, but I wasn't getting routinely sick every year like I was as a teenager before I got that. So I was looking at my medical records and I see, I get invasive medicine and then I'm sick routinely and then I cure myself and I'm not completely cured. And it's just a process of unfolding, Mm. So that's kind of like where my story comes from. I hope that answers your question. It's just a lot. And so now I feel like in an altruistic and like humanic way, like I want to serve other women and show them, you too can get pregnant, you too can have that family that you desire. And it all starts with your life choices and your habits and what you're consuming every day and exposure to every day.
Right. Mm-hmm. Your story is incredibly powerful, and congratulations on your second child. That's amazing.
Thank you. God sent.
Yeah, seriously. I'm so curious, when you kind of opened up about your story and started posting more about this stuff, were you surprised by how many other people were dealing with similar issues?
No, because in school, I took this class on like pretty much, it's a class that was dedicated to toxin exposure, and the amount of chemicals, and chemical is like a very nuanced word because everything is chemical, but the amount of toxins that we are exposed to daily and the amount of it's really not surprising, especially if you live in a large city. I mean, you are being exposed to all types of endocrine disrupting chemicals, things that are going to mess with your reproductive system, give you brain fog, keep your immune system like, base level. Yeah, I'm not surprised, but the outreach that I'm getting personally is surprising for me because I have never expected my account to grow the way that it has, and for me to be able to touch the lives of other women in the way that I have. So to me, that is surprising, but the amount of infertility we're seeing, not so much. So it really is, it's nuanced, but the numbers are compelling.
Interesting. Ariel, I know this is a loaded question, but where exactly did we go wrong in regards to fertility that's led us to the situation that we're in now?
Where did we go wrong? I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, just where, like, where do we go wrong when it comes to female fertility? Is it like an overprevalence of birth control? Is it
Oh,
endocrine disruptors? Like, I know there's probably multiple different factors, but just curious, like with all the research that you've done, like what did you come across that kind of like made the light bulb go off in your head?
birth control was a really compelling one. Mostly because we do not have a lot of long-term studies done on it. And I actually have a lot of friends that I'm working with personally who have been off birth control for years now, and they're still not getting pregnant, even though I'm working with them diligently and they're following every protocol in the book. Birth control is definitely one of the higher ups. I mean, there's also, the toxin exposures in our food and in the makeup that we use, and even just living in a city in general. I mean, you're exposed to so much just walking about. So everything that you're ingesting is going to acclimate to whether you are fertile or not. And I say birth control definitely does have the most compelling evidence.
Is there anything in terms of nutrition? Because that's something that we talk about all the time, is nutrition and how it affects male hormones, female hormones, but nutritionally that you changed for yourself that really helped you kind of figure out some of the problems that you were running into?
Nutrition and herbs, yes.
Okay.
So do you guys know about the doctrine of signatures? Are you guys familiar?
No.
No.
It's basically it goes over how different vegetables and fruits and how they look and how they relate to your body, like how a walnut looks like a brain and it's good for your brain health, stuff like that. Or like a carrot, if you cut it like straight down, it looks like the iris of an eye and they're good for your eyes. So to me, I started applying that with fertility. I started eating a lot of oysters, a lot of fish roe, a lot of or salmon roe, excuse me, like raw fish, a lot of stuff that contained like DHA, and eggs, things like that are like symbolize fertility and they're literally eggs or animal eggs of that nature. I started doing that and I started noticing a really big increase in overall like better reproductive health, leveled out cycles, especially with like menstrual pains and menstrual flow. I mean, I used to, as a teenager, I had an awful menstrual cycle. I mean, it was painful, it was overbearing, and as an adult, it's nothing like that now. And it's not painful, and it's it feels natural. It doesn't like affect and debilitate my everyday, So I started eating like animal foods mostly and drinking herbs like red raspberry leaf tea, alfalfa leaf, dong quai, I think that's how you pronounce it, chaste berries. I mean, these herbs are, I'm pretty sure, what allowed me to conceive again the second time. But alongside with the nutrition, I mean, it's like a powerful punch. It allows your body to be able to harbor life again. So back to the doctrine of signatures, I applied that knowledge about fruits and vegetables to animal parts, and here we are 2 kids later. So I think it's effective. I mean, at least it was for me.
Yeah, it's almost like you very intuitively started leaning towards some of the nutrient dense animal products. I know you mentioned the fish roe and raw fish, eggs. It's pretty incredible how many, not just females, but males as well, they start to incorporate these really animal products, and they have all these incredible benefits of it. Have you worked with anyone that was maybe formerly plant-based that has now incorporated these products and has had positive effects at all?
You're looking at her. I was a vegan for 2 years, and then in 2020 I started going back to meat because I was in the jungles of Costa Rica and I was famished. It was summer there, it was February, but it was hot, and the only thing I could think about was this like chicken stand. One of the locals was roasting up his chicken and I bit into it, and I have not gone back to veganism since. So maybe, and I always wondered, like, maybe that's why it was hard for me to conceive again, because my daughter at that time was 3. So I'm like, maybe it was the veganism, but like I was like technically a healthy vegan. I don't know. I wasn't eating like the fake meat and like all the garbage. I was just like produce. And then I started incorporating meat back in my diet, and you know, I'm self-sufficient now. I mean, it worked. But I do know others that on this journey have done the same, and it has, going back to eating meat has cleared up a plethora of problems for them, not just fertility and you know, their reproductive health.
How much does stress play into the equation for hormone health for, you know, females and men?
Oh, a significant amount. And I also, like, I want to add, I have a thread on birth control and how it affects our cortisol and the HPA axis. It keeps, like, our stress is so important. And I'm pretty sure I've heard this talked about on your podcast before, but your cortisol levels are definitely interfering with you getting pregnant 100%. You know, your body is a temple, and when you're allowing like constant triggers and constant like negligence, it's like you're bound to have problems. And I really do think that stress is plays a huge factor into it.
Yeah, that's great. And then another thing that you touched on before that we're not incredibly familiar with, but we've heard a good amount about are these adaptogenic herbs and teas that you incorporated. What was the thought process behind incorporating some of them into your regimen?
I actually, Twitter brought me to that, because I wasn't too savvy with, even though like in my degree, I learned a lot about them and herbs and botany and all of that. But excuse me, I started taking reishi mushroom and working with adaptogenic herbs just because I didn't know where like the underlying issues of the infertility I was experiencing was at, and taking them kind of like showed me intuitively like what was going on inside my body, if that makes sense. So, you know, taking those, I started realizing like, okay, I feel good when I take these, but like, why? You know, like what's going on internally? How can I tune my body to make it better? And then that's when I started adding in those like other nutritional substances like the salmon roe and the eggs, and eating for my reproductive system. So sorry, that was a tricky question. I hope I answered it as fluently as possible.
No,
it's great.
Okay.
What are some of the common issues that you see women running into with their reproductive health? What, like when they come to you, like what are some of the things that they're looking to change, or like they're like common problems that people are having?
Their diets. A lot of the women that I talk to, they know that they're eating like shit. Like they're aware, but a lot of it is they don't know what direction to take to cleanse their bodies, to prepare it for life. I actually have a mom friend who gave birth to a daughter who was born with a brain tumor because her diet was so poor during her prenatal, you know, gestation period. So to me, I think a lot of it plays in with their dietary choices and their lifestyle. I mean, that is the pivotal and most important thing you can do for yourself if you're going to have a child, is correct your body and give it the nourishment that it needs. Because when you're pregnant, you know, all your nutrient stores are getting depleted every day. I mean, you're literally building a new person, you know? So these women come to me and they're already like their nutrition stores are already, you know, not even at base level. I mean, it's so tanked, you know? So to me, it's like, what are you eating? Like every morning when you wake up, like, what are you reaching for? You know?
Do you work with your clients on like mineral testing to understand what they're sufficient in and maybe deficient in?
I have,
Okay.
yes. I usually ask to see blood work or ask them to, um, if they have like a primary care physician to get blood work done, because I can't work with I can't do anything for them otherwise. Sometimes if I'm seeing them face to face, in my degree, I have been taught through traditional Chinese medicine, it's very easy to face read and you can kind of like see where the deficiencies are on their face. And I have been able to do it like that. And most of the time it's fairly easy because a lot of it is I see a lot of adrenal fatigue, honestly, and a lot of just like basic mineral deficiencies like magnesium, potassium,
Mm.
whatever. So I have asked to see panels before and they usually deliver. It's kind of hard to get it out of them because a lot of people, they hear that they're like, oh, it's like extra work. Like I can't give them an answer on spot though. It requires me, if you want to build something, I have to see numbers. And even the blood work isn't always right because nutritional stores, those aren't on
Right.
paper, like those are a completely different topic.
Right.
Yeah.
What was I gonna ask? I just lost my train of thought.
It's
Um,
okay.
I'm curious. Shoot, I totally lost my
No,
train of thought. Do you have a
yeah,
question?
yeah.
Just totally blacked out.
No, it happens. I was just curious, are you ever surprised at just how many women maybe aren't in tune with cycle tracking and where they are in regards to their cycle? Is that something that you work with a lot of women on as well?
Like, I don't want to say surprised because it's
Right.
rude,
Yeah.
because to me, it's just become such a lifestyle,
Mm.
but it is a bit alarming. I think that is a result of our educational system not, informing women. Like, we're all taught sex ed in school, but women and men are not taught about their own like hormones. They're not taught about the intricacy of our cycles. Like, women are not taught how to check their temperature, check their cervical fluid, check their cervix. They're not taught about like where they're at, in their ovulation cycle. It's insane. And it blows my mind. Like, women, especially, it's not even just that. It's more so like women who get pregnant on accident and they're like, oh, like I didn't even know I was like gonna have a baby, whatever. And it's so easy to know when you're fertile or not. Like it's really so simple. Like, we have birth control. It's knowing your body. It's literally just feeling your body, like feeling your temperature, knowing where you're at. It's so simple, but we're not taught that in school. We're really not. I wasn't even taught that in college. I had to learn that on my own. I had to learn that so that I could have my own children. So it is sincerely disappointing. And I hate saying that because I don't want to shame women for not knowing. It's just, if you know better, you do better.
From a male perspective, is there anything that you think that we should know, like for our female partner, about maybe where she is in her cycle and how that may change how she's thinking or how she's acting?
Uh, well, there is levels to this because there's
Yeah.
phases in our cycle. So really, I would like to focus on luteal phase, which is the phase that we endure right after ovulation and before we have our period. That's the phase where your girlfriend may be acting a little crazier than usual. She might have a breakout here or there. She might be wanting that chocolate. She might want something sweet. That is the phase where you need to nourish her the most. You need to be feeding her oysters, salmon roe. You need to give her all the macronutrients so that when she sheds her uterine lining and she starts having those few days where she needs to rest and, get everything out, that's where you need to, hunker down and just give her like that extra support and love, because that's when we kind of feel like the most crazy, if we're being honest. It's like when our hormones are whacking out the most. So I hope that's solid advice for you guys, because that's like the only thing I can really think of. Because ovulation is whatever, like you just need to be careful and not get pregnant. Your period, you're gonna be in bed or like resting. But luteal phase, that little week, that short period where she's acting a little psycho, like you just gotta feed her right and she'll act right.
With an emphasis on nutrient dense foods, you said?
Oh, yes, because when you're shedding your uterus, we're literally shedding an organ. It's pretty metal. You're literally, and during that period, like I always tell women, don't work out, like don't go and lift weights, like don't do anything crazy. Just give your body that rest it needs. Like there's a reason why we're so tired and why we're fatigued. It's give her the magnesium and the potassium, and just make sure she's well nourished so that she doesn't get completely too down, because it can be very painful for some women. Like my grandmother told me growing up, she would have to miss days of school from a menstrual cycle, and I'm like, that's insane. As someone who's healthy and very able now, it blows my mind that a lot of us are completely debilitated by our menstrual cycles when we don't have to be, and it all comes from being malnourished, in my opinion.
How long does that typical menstrual cycle actually last? And then because I've heard many people running into problems with this recently, like they're either like having issues, like they're missing their cycle or whatever it is. So how long should it actually be? And like, what should guys know about fertility cycling? Like what Brett was talking about, like there's a window there where you're most fertile. How long is that window?
That varies between woman to woman. For a healthy individual, you'll usually see a 28-day cycle with a period that will last 3 to 4 days. But again, it really does vary on where you're at with your own biology and your own nourishment intake. For guys, I feel like you guys should know. And it's really not up for you to know, like your partner should know, because how are you supposed to know when she's ovulating? Like you're going to wake up and check her temperature. It's not just a matter of checking her temperature. I mean, it's a matter of checking cervical fluid, like cervical placement, all of that. It's a lot. So it's really up for the woman to be like, hey, like I'm fertile right now. And if you're trying to conceive, it's a perfect time to conceive. And if you're not, then, just try to stay away from one another. And, it's really hard to say. Mostly that ovulation window is usually like 4 to 5 days, I'd say, or like maybe 3 to 5. It depends on person to person. So, and I don't think there's no like symptoms of it. It's after ovulation that you'll start, getting breakouts, or you start feeling hormonal, moody, feeling even hotter. Like I get extremely hot after I ovulate. So it's about, there are apps that tell you, but personally, like I've just been doing it so long that I know like my own cycle. And I feel like starting with an app would probably, like Ovia is a great app. I recommend to all of my friends who are trying to conceive and are pregnant even. I recommend that app to them, and it allows them to track like their moods and what their body is doing at all times. And then with time, you kind of just wean off of it and you're able to know yourself. So there are a plethora of ways to figure it out.
Got it. But Ovia is an app that you'll recommend?
Yeah, Ovia. It's great. I used it for my entire pregnancy and it was so informative. And I even use it now postpartum. So
perfect. One of the things that we've done a little bit of research on is how it's pretty common with indigenous tribes where females would prepare sometimes years in advance to knowing that they were going to have a child. And it seems like that's something that we've really gotten pretty far away from in modern society. Like I think if you told most people that was what indigenous tribes do, they'd think you were crazy. But I'm curious, like, is that something that you did in anticipation of having kids? Is that something that you recommend for clients that you work with? Just curious about.
This is such a sweet question because it really brings me back to my like younger self. So I know what you're talking about. It's not even just tribes. There's so many women that can feel their child's energy before they even come to fruition. And it's such a beautiful, wholesome moment. And I remember when I was, and mind you, like I had my child at 20, but I got pregnant at 19, and I was having dreams of her before I conceived. And in these dreams, she was showing me my birth and that I was going to have a really gnarly cesarean section and that I wasn't going to be able to have a natural birth. And I was like, this is crazy. Like, why am I having dreams about, having a surgical birth of a little girl? And that's exactly what happened, even though I wasn't even pregnant yet. So, and I could just, I feel like women, especially very in tune women, they have that understanding that life is coming because you're literally like becoming a bridge between two worlds. You're pulling in nothing and bringing in life. Like you are literally, I don't want to say the word manifesting, but you're harboring like God's creation, and to me, I feel like women just kind of intuitively know whether they want to admit it or not. And there's just always that like back of the mind, like, am I going to be pregnant soon? Like, something like that. That's how I felt, at least. I had a very, very strong feeling that I was going to become pregnant, and eventually I did. And all the dreams that I had, I mean, it to the T. I mean, I had a little girl. She looked like the little girl in my dreams, had a surgical birth. I mean, it was absolutely phenomenal. And I feel as if a lot of women can have that same testimony because God's creation is just so potent, It's hard not to feel that when you're so emotionally attached to another being that you created.
Yeah. And from a nutritional perspective, is that something that you will incorporate with clients? Like maybe it's like a year or two in advance, or they're starting to think about maybe them and their partner, they want to have kids. Will you start to lean them towards some of like the more nutrient dense animal-based foods just to kind of prime their body for pregnancy?
I do that like the minute they want to hire me.
Yeah.
I'm like, if they're serious about working with me, I have to ensure that they're veering away from all processed foods and anything that can interfere with their health.
You mentioned a cesarean birth. Are you seeing more people interested in having these at-home births, like who are your clients or elsewhere?
I think in general, I'm witnessing a really big revolution of women realizing that, excuse me, that they don't want to be institutionalized to birth. The laboring woman is the most primal thing you'll ever witness. I don't know if you guys are parents or not, but
No.
Okay. Well, whenever you guys, have children and you witness that for yourself, you'll understand what I mean. It's the most animalistic thing we could possibly go through. And at some point, I feel like we want to return back to the roots of being in the comfort of our own home with dimmed lights, surrounded by, our loved ones, instead of being thrown into fluorescent lighting in a sterile room with, strangers that are groping you and you can't feel your legs and you can't walk and you're doped up on medicine. I mean, a lot of us that have experienced that, and I had that surgical birth, so I have experienced it. A lot of us that have experienced that, it's not fun. It's not like it takes away like all the natural physiological processes that you're supposed to endure during birth, because you're supposed to feel that pressure. You're supposed to feel the quote unquote pain. You're supposed to really feel that movement, and when you get thrown into a hospital, you become completely immobilized and you're surrounded by complete strangers who you'll never see again during the most transformative experience of your life. So I am definitely seeing a huge revolution of women gearing away towards Rockefeller science and back into the homes where they belong, which is really refreshing because, quite frankly, I am sick of the medical industry profiting off something so sacred. I mean, it's disgusting. So
yeah, 100%.
Amazing.
Yeah, we were speaking to a couple of our friends yesterday, and they had mentioned that they're going to go to a birthing center in Austin. Mm-hmm. Is that kind of like an intermediary between like a hospital and a home birth?
Yeah, I thought about a birthing center, but I actually, a lot of birthing centers don't qualify for vaginal birth after cesarean, so I wasn't able to have that. But yes, a birthing center is kind of like that halfway place where they don't want to be in a hospital, but they want to make sure that they are in a area where if something were to happen, that they'll have help. But most home birth mamas, they still have a trained professional midwife, which has enough credentials to ensure that they will deliver safely. So to me, like, I like birthing centers because it gives women that kind of like security, but I also kind of feel like they're not always necessary. But that's not really my place to say, because for what one woman feels about what makes her comfortable to birth and like where she's gonna be, it's not in my place to be like, oh, like that's
Right.
not good, you know. Like a woman has to be completely vulnerable in order for her to even start her laboring process, because like by nature we're animals. If I feel like I'm gonna walk into like, to me, I look at hospitals as like not the best grounds to bring in life. Like, they're not scary, but they're not somewhere where I want to be. So if I were to, you know, start labor and then go into a hospital, my body's going to close up and it's going to stall because I don't feel safe there. And it'd probably do the same for a birth center because it's not my home, you know.
Yeah.
But for another woman who is like used to that regulatory, you know, being around doctors, hospitals, etc., she looks at a hospital and she's like, I feel safe here because if something were to happen and I, you know, if I almost die, like there's someone there that's going to be there for me. You know, every woman's completely complex and different. So
right.
Birth centers, home, hospital, I try not to be judgmental, especially as someone who's about to go into midwifery. It's really not in my place to say where is the best place, because every woman is just so complex.
Is there a particular topic or message around women's fertility, women's health that you're feeling like most passionate about right now that you feel like you need to get the message out about, or anything that you're excited to do more research on?
Fertility wise, I just get happy when women take back their bodies and that they know their issues are, especially the moms the women that I work with that have chronic conditions like PCOS or endometritis. A lot of that is diet based and genetic, but you know, we all know that genetics can be overridden, and that we can overcome certain things with what we consume. So for me, it's like I get excited when women, you know, listen to my advice on their dietary needs and they actually they're able to conceive, you know, and they're able to work with their bodies and claim it back, because a lot of us lose it in the process of becoming a woman because we're so consumed with, you know, the toxic activity that we're exposed to.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about with yourself how you don't even need an app to track where you are in your cycle because you're so intuitive and you're able to draw, like, intrinsically, you understand where you are. Like, that's such an amazing goal. And it sounds like, you know, you've had your own process and progression to be able to get to that point. So that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, especially during postpartum, because after you have your baby, there's really no telling, you know, when your menses is going to come back and how your cycle is going to look. It takes, especially if you're breastfeeding, because when you're breastfeeding, your period just kind of disappears. It could disappear after like a year. You know, I have some moms who are 8 months in and haven't had a cycle yet, but moms like me, I was a month in and it came back. You know, it's so complex. And I don't think that's a determination on diet either. I just think that's however your biology is set up.
Yeah.
So
Is Ariel, is there any conventional medical advice around pregnancy that you see where you like almost shake your head and you're like, this is so ass backwards from what it's supposed to be?
pregnancy and birth, especially in regards to like inductions and modern medicine and how we bring in life into the world. My first birth went completely haywire because I was given Pitocin, and that is what stalled my labor. And Pitocin isn't even, I don't want to go into it. It's a lot, but the medicine that we give like pregnant moms, like for them to give birth is just completely barbaric, because our bodies are literally built to do this. And when we interfere with medicine, we interfere with the hormones that are released during birth. So it makes it like more painful almost. If a woman goes into labor naturally and she doesn't take epidural, she doesn't take Pitocin or any of like the medicine that you would see in a labor or in a hospital room, when she doesn't take those, her body can withstand that pain because her brain is being flooded with the hormones that allow her to birth. Like, we have natural painkillers that our body is constantly producing so that we can withstand the amount of pressure our pelvis is going through. So stuff like that just like blows my mind. And there are some anomalies where some women genuinely cannot do it, and I understand that, but I think as a whole, like, we're built for this. There should, but again, I can't sit here and be like, oh, you can't take epidural, because it's so much. It is a lot, but these medicines definitely interfere with the natural processes and can land women in serious consequences for not just their birth, but even their postpartum aftercare.
Are there any books or resources that you have used in the past that have really helped you kind of figure out some of these questions and problems that you were running into?
Yes, I've read quite a few books by this incredible midwife, and women who are listening to me may know her. Her name is Ina May Gaskin, and she is a home birth midwife. She doesn't really dabble in the fertility stuff, but she is definitely someone that I have read, except like I'm reading one of her books right now called Spiritual Midwifery, because I'm trying to prep myself for midwifery school. And she just blows my mind with how much information she knows. And she's still practicing at the age of like 83, I think, in Tennessee or Kentucky. Incredible woman. She's so awesome. But I've also read this book called The Forgotten or the Lost, is it the Forgotten Organ or the Forgotten Chakra, the placenta? And it talks about how cultures celebrate a woman's placenta after they're born, and how imperative it is to keep the placenta on or attached to the baby when it's born. There's quite a few books that I've read on maternity care and pregnancy that have revolutionized how I look at it as a whole.
Wow. Yeah, well, we will definitely link to both of those in the show notes. Those sound incredible. And then just for the listener that wants to connect with you a little bit more, to learn more about the work that you're doing and just more threads and insights in your writing, what's the best way for them to go about doing that?
I'm sorry, what do you mean?
Like, if people just want to connect with you a little bit more and just learn, like, what is it, Twitter? Is it a website? What's the best way for people to go about doing that?
I'm only on Twitter right now,
Okay.
but as I gear into the traditional midwifery program, they're going to set me up on how to monetize my business and how to like gear myself into getting in with more moms and making sure that I'm set up to help others and serve others. So right now, Twitter is my main, construct that I'm using. Perfect. And I have Instagram. My Instagram is Womb of Wisdom.
Womb of Wisdom. Okay, we'll link to that. And
Okay.
then your Twitter is Omnivoyance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm debating on changing the app, but I'll keep it there for now just because like the podcast. But I was thinking about changing it because I am like gaining more traction for my work in maternity care and fertility care. And I just feel like the rebrand is coming. So
nice. I like Womb of Wisdom. It's a good one.
Thank you. I'm about to buy the LLC for it so that no one else takes it. Yeah.
Jump
Awesome.
on it soon.
Yeah, well, you
definitely.
Yeah, a few supporters here. So no, we just appreciate you coming on. This is an amazing conversation. We learned a lot. We think our listeners are going to learn a lot too. And we'll make sure to link to all the resources that you recommended in the show notes. But I just really appreciate it, Ariel, and I just appreciate all the work that you're doing.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate you guys having me. It's been awesome.
Awesome.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ariel.
Of course. You guys have an excellent night.
You too.